Hold on. I'll say
So,
when.
okay. Damn. I thought that was funny.
And we're live. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is something that I've been thinking about lately. I'm kind of gathering together some cameras to sell. There's a Rolly 35. I have a Zenobia, and we should go through these so you guys can get first dibs. I have a what is this? Oh, it's a Retina 1A. And so I was just kind of looking at all these things, and then I've been spending time just kind of looking at some auction sites, and I picked up lately a Trip 35, and then it worked perfectly, and then I dropped it, so now I've ordered another Trip 35. So this is my question to you guys, and I don't really have an answer, but I'm willing to go first on this. And that is, how many different ways can you shoot? So, and I'm, take a picture, make a picture. So your iPhone is one of them. And I don't need to hear, well, on my Pentax Spotmatic ES, I can take Portra, and I can take Tri-X, and I can, 35 millimeter in the standard 35 millimeter frame is it. But if you're talking about, I can do a positive on, a paper positive on a 4x5 and a negative on a 4x5, those would be two different things to me. If you have the Lomo instant back,
So
is
your question, I'm sorry, but like to clarify, your question is like, how many different mediums do you shoot? Or
it could be mediums. It could be mediums, but or media, depending on how you see the plural of that word.
So you're not interested in different lenses or different styles of camera or anything, just the image materials itself.
Yeah, so I probably easily have conservatively 40 different ways to take a 24 by 36 millimeter image, roughly, on a on film. I can't do that readily and easily on paper. So I would count that as one. Then you can do 645, 6x6.
Right.
Maybe we just do 120 film as, but
I think the different formats are really significant. I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm building a camera right now that's 24 by 48 pinhole. So that would be a different format. But I want you to start thinking about that. So I don't think I shoot readily any paper at what I would consider medium format size. But we could do 645, 6x6, 6x7. I do have a back. I don't use it very often. I can do I don't have anything 6x9, but I do have 6x12. And I have in parts a 6x17. And then I have a 6x17 up there. So those both count as one. On film, then I don't know what we want to call the Lomo Instax wide back.
That's just another format.
Yeah, it's 6x10, but directly onto instant film. Then I can do also 4x5 paper, 4x5 film. And that's kind of where I max out. So really, and then I can do half frame. I've got a couple of half frames.
So it's a little more than a dozen different things. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I was thinking about this is I was thinking about the Kraken has done very well for me. And just 2 days ago, I got tagged by people who are using modified versions of the Kraken files for Kraken 6x17s. And, I mean, I love that. I absolutely love that people are doing that. And then there's, so I was thinking about, okay, so what can I do that is different? I think I threw.
Nothing. Nothing
Yeah,
is
well,
different.
yeah. So there's something. I think that there was that, but I want to hear what you guys can do. And we'll get back to what can be done. I mean, Ethan's already said, but I think that this also will feed into what Nick wanted to talk about today. So, so what do you guys think, Nick? What can you do, format wise, readily? Because I mean, if you're 8x10 cameras in parts, what could you do today?
4x5, all the normal 120 formats, including your Kraken. So that's 6x12. I like 6x7 a lot. It's one of my very favorite formats.
Yeah.
Format's a big deal to me. I think the shape of an image is almost the most important thing in terms of how it affects composition, and then it also directly impacts what lenses are usable and all that stuff. So it's I find it very important. Then as far as your basic film ones, I don't have an APS-C film.
Oh, right.
I do have the X-Pan shaped panoramic back.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Which I like a lot. I like panoramic, and I like square a lot, and I like 6x7 a lot. I like tall, generous shapes, or very long, narrow ones the best. And I find that my least favorite shape is the 3:2 aspect ratio that most cameras use. It's maybe partly just because it's so familiar, but I also find that it's neither wide nor tall. It's kind of this compromise that doesn't give you any of the excitement of either of the more extreme shapes.
Well,
so
you also have the GFX.
Yeah, and that's another example that both of my digital types of camera, like your Fuji X, both of those have built in a lot of format options, and that I find extremely useful. And I count them as different. They really are different. And when it comes to the GFX, there's a lot of lenses that can only be used with crops like square or panoramic.
Right.
So most 35 millimeter lenses don't cover the whole sensor, at least in normal focal lengths. And so being able to crop is not just, it's essential as well as being really fun. So yeah, that's I think my top thing. So for me, format is the first driver when I think about designing or making a camera.
Okay. Ethan, what are you thinking on this?
So I don't know that. I mean, I have a good answer or really even understand like the question. Am I supposed to catalog here all of the different types of negative and positives that I like to make, or what my preference is?
Well, you've got a 20x24 camera that can shoot positives or negatives.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that is something that's outside of what is normally easily available for the vast majority of people. Even the people who are listening to our podcast, I'm sure more than one of them has a 20x24 in the works, right? And we know Dave Walker's working on various positive RA4 processes. Like I could do RA4 positive, but I'm not counting it. I have the chemistry. I couldn't do it today. It would take me a while to do that.
And in a way, that's the whole point of the format, because
Right.
because it's instant, the only way to get that format is with a giant camera. Otherwise, you're a
Yeah.
lot better off with an enlarger because you don't have to
Yeah.
carry this huge box around everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although you're sacrificing a generation of image, right?
Yeah, well, it's a pretty good trade-off with good
Yeah.
quality film anyway.
I would
Yeah.
probably say I would like to shoot whatever format I can, just have some time to shoot.
Okay. So
All
I
of
yeah,
this yelling about Kodak film price rises.
uh,
Adorama just had a sale. I think it's actually still going on if you guys want to check it out. It's like $5 a roll for Neopan 2. And I was like, okay, I bought 20 rolls for $100. That should last me a whole damn year. Like I don't get to shoot enough. I would like to shoot more.
it's $8.99. It's which is good. That's $9 versus 12 is good.
Yeah, I
That's
think they were selling 5
25%
packs for
off.
$24.99. But anyway,
Yeah.
the point is like, okay, even if it was $20 a roll, well, if it's $20 a roll, might get a little, but not really,
Yeah.
right? Like I
Well,
don't
the
shoot
way,
that
yeah,
much, and I
right. And the way I feel about it is, if you're having a problem, just take better quality photographs.
yeah, easier said than done.
Yeah. So, Ethan, here's what I'm going to say to you for your response. I spend my working time teaching graphic design, web design, which is all a subset of marketing. So, one of the things that we have to do is we have to know our target audience
Hmm.
because we need to know whether or not we are speaking to our target audience. And one of the worst things that you can do is anyone who would be interested in a 20 by 24 camera. Because what you're saying is, I don't know, and I don't care who's interested.
Yeah,
You need to, so I'm going to send you back. What you said, I can do anything that I want, but
maybe.
what do you really want to do? What is it that you have to do?
I mean, I have learned through more than a decade of self-employment, like sort of to do professionally, right? We could talk
Uh-huh.
about my artistic desires, and maybe that's how it was questioned. But like,
Yeah,
just to be
yeah, talk
open
about
to
both of it.
right,
Yeah,
and I think like
yeah,
I like to get to make my art at work, right? I've been very lucky to do a little bit of that, but it also
yeah.
kind of requires doing art that people are into, whether it's making like a camera manual zine or cameras or photos, any of that. Like I just have to be open to I don't want to like do things that I really don't want to do. I don't want to become like a Polaroid snuff photographer or anything like that, right? For any amount of money, but I think like if I'm
Good for
open
you.
to
You are. That makes you barely. You've
barely
set the
human,
bar
right?
at
I
barely
am.
human.
Yeah, yeah, right. But like, you get my point. Is that there's a lot of things that I would consider fun, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm into street photography. I would love to go spend a week or a month or a year just walking around eating pizza and dumplings and taking pictures of weird things happening on the street. But like, also I really enjoy portrait photography. I like this giant weird camera. I like Instax, and so I guess I'm always just looking for an opportunity to shoot something that would please me, but also have some sort of business reason or justification. And any of it is cool.
Uh-huh. Hey,
You don't
Nick,
like
you're
that
breathing
answer,
into
do
the
you?
mic.
What's that?
You're breathing into the mic.
Yeah,
You're
it's like
giving us
up
a
your
rumble.
nose.
So just move it up. There we go. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So but you're not going to take a 20 by 24 street photographing. I'm really trying to get at the idea. I mean, I don't want to do the stupid there's nothing new under the sun. I'm trying to say what what's the new frontier, and I think 20 by 24 was the new frontier. I would also love to have seen that as 20 by 20, but then you got to cut down the paper. Why,
Just make a mask.
or make a mask.
So I have one for you that
Yeah.
occurred to me the other day. So I mentioned that I like that really wide panorama similar to X-Pan.
Yeah.
And I did a mental experiment the other day where I thought, well, why not run 120 film vertically through a camera and take those shapes out of that, slice, 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 slice. And it works out that you actually get quite a lot of shots.
So I did that. Remember my 6x3
The
camera?
Holga panoramic mask was.
That's the idea, but I'm
product.
I'm talking even wider. So it's 6 by whatever, 2.5, or that.
Okay, sure.
That comes closer to the X-Pan one.
6x3 is really convenient because you have numbers, but you could, because
Yeah.
you use the 6x6 numbers twice, but you could use 6 or 5 numbers twice.
And all you need is some sort of roller indicator that's measuring the amount of film passing. It's actually quite simple.
Yeah.
Well, you could use the numbers, but by having multiple windows, you could use the numbers. So you would see, you would
see 6, 4, 5 twice.
Yeah.
And so
in two different windows, right?
You're 6x2.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of ways to do it. They're pretty straightforward. And I think it would actually give you something worth doing.
Yeah.
I do. And
so
that's
been considering
sort of a new way to approach that same thing. And it could be a really compact film back too, because it doesn't have to stick out on the sides.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting idea. It would be, it's basically what a Rolleiflex does. In fact, you could probably figure out some TLRs could be modified to even shoot this way. I think some were in the past.
I think that you could do it with something like like an RB back, a roll.
Oh, turn it on side, put it sideways.
Yeah. And that's what that 6x3 really was. And there's something for that. I am working right now on a 645 pinhole that I'll talk about probably in our next show. And I'm really considering the tripod mount on one of the ends, so it's 645 horizontal, just like the Mamiya 645 and the Pentax 645 and the Contacts. So there is that. There's definitely that. So anyway, I'm just, I feel, it's not quite fin de siècle or whatever that is.
Siècle.
Siècle. Thank you. You are the artist of us all, so I will take you on that. But I am I'm looking at a lot of ideas and thinking I've already done that. So that's, I'm not saying I'm done building cameras, because I've just launched a whole new generation.
You're done with formats.
I might be, hey, I've done these formats. 6x17 is interesting to me much more academically than it is in final execution, simply because to display it, you have to see it, to display it to the effectiveness of what you're talking about. 6 centimeters of 56 centimeters by 165 centimeters.
Yeah, you start needing weird equipment built by Dewey or Hervé.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that that is an in-person picture, and our generation, even though we're older, our generation is so much more about, the electronic, the social media, the screen display. I do a lot of prints, but I do prints on 5x7 paper.
So I've been struggling a lot lately with that, trying to get a monitor to look like paper, to do a paper print on a digital printer. It's a pain in the neck, and I'm so used to preparing images to look good on a screen. There is a simple solution to that, except that it's expensive. That's a really nice photograph.
Yeah, that's my dad.
Yeah, great photo.
So yeah, it really worked for me. Here's one.
I just want to throw this out before I forget.
Yeah.
If things look good on the backlit screen, if you simply have them at great cost printed on aluminum, it tends to look perfect.
Oh,
because
hell yeah.
that shiny metal is a very close analog to the backlit screen. And I tried that as an experiment recently. I wish it didn't cost so much because it really works.
Yeah. I have one I bought from a student at the Art Institutes, who it's a marquee for a dead movie theater, and it's in my living room, and it's opposite west facing windows, so in the evening it just freaking glows.
So the experiment I tried is you can now have any image you have on Flickr printed in many different media. You can do it cheaply on regular paper. You can do it on art paper. What I tried was the metal, and I just wanted to see, well, what happens when you just send them a JPEG. And I didn't have high hopes, and what came back looked fantastic. It looked exactly like it looks on my screen, and so that was kind of nice.
But another thing, again, an argument against the 617 format, and I'm not trying to run anybody down who loves it, because I like the look of it. The problem is that then you're going to have to cut that metal yourself, because they're not going to do a size.
Well, they do actually. They actually do quite a range. I don't know about that, but you'd be surprised. They have a lot of formats available.
Yeah,
and they basically they look at what you're showing them, and they come up with something that'll fit.
Okay. So I don't know. Shall we start the Homemade Camera podcast? I feel like
we are off in the weeds.
Yes, we are. Yeah, we're out in the weeds.
Well, we're starting in the weeds, and we're probably going to stay there, and then I'll have to go to work.
Can we take a short break? In the live recording, will just be dead air. But okay, let's start it. Should we re-record that?
No, let's just we'll go with that. What the the idea that we were ever professional is long past. Ethan, are we going?
Oh. And we're back.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. So part of what I wanted to talk about the different formats for was because Nick had talked about the idea that he was really wanting to talk about I don't want to say pie in the sky, but really um dream cameras, right? So so Nick, what is it that is really what's at the top level of your idea of something different?
So lately, I've been thinking a lot about some ideas I've had for a while, but they're not even necessarily cameras per se, but contraptions that would help me take photographs in like really bad weather or
Uh,
very awkward locations. Um, and there are different categories. But for instance, I like to go out on the beach in a gale when it's really stormy. And what you find here is blowing rain, blowing sand. You find a lot of things that will destroy a camera really
yeah.
quickly. And I've had different ideas about how to solve this problem. And one of the things is I like to use sort of these a little bit awkward press cameras and something that, gets some big film
So a
behind it.
Pentax point and shoot WR90 or whatever
No,
is
that,
not appealing.
I mean, no, those are great. And I do sometimes use sort of essentially disposable cameras in these situations, like a little cheap camera. But no, what I'm looking for is a way to get a big piece of film with a good lens in those situations. Uh, and so one of the ideas I've had is this kind of sort of think of a little blimp that you wear. It's like a shoulder harness, and your head's up inside this blimp shaped thing with a porthole on the
Like a
front.
diving bell.
Yeah, but for the air. And it's streamlined so that you can face into the wind with it, and maybe it might even have like your basic biplane controls like ailerons and a fin to help angle it in the wind. um, so it sounds a little goofy, but it's some sort of really serious weather cover that you can wear and walk around with and shoot out from inside. Might need a windshield wiper or just a way to reach out with a rag and wipe it off. um, so that's one idea, this all-weather camera blimp.
Okay. So hang on a second. Let me share. Share my screen is where on here? Present now. There we go. A window. Okay. So how are they going to be different from these types of things? Like this. I mean, obviously the hands.
Well, it's just too shallow. If you're working with a press camera, you need something that sticks way out in front of you. Also,
Okay.
I'm
And
I'm
your hands
farsighted.
are
I'm farsighted, so I need room to be able to see a ground glass screen or to be able to see the back of a camera. Uh, it needs to be a pretty spacious thing. Um,
okay. So
those look sort of. I mean,
I think that
they look
this
too.
is
And also,
halfway.
your arms aren't inside those.
Yeah,
So
right. And but this is halfway to what you're looking for, right?
Uh, yeah, I guess if you want to maybe to take pictures in a foul-smelling environment, that would be good.
Well, you could brush your teeth ahead of time and maybe choose not to have garlic in your powdered eggs in the
No,
morning.
that won't happen. So
Yeah.
it's gonna. But picture something that sticks out in the front and then has a counterbalance in the back, just so that you're
Yeah.
not lopsided.
And for people who are who are listening while driving and all that type of thing, I searched bubble COVID mask, and there's one that's it looks very much like a space suit from the shoulders up. It comes down to mid torso,
Yeah,
and so
right.
I
Germaphobe suits. Yeah.
yeah. But what's the different? Okay, so they have the other thing that you could do, which is the belly, not the belly. What the heck was I thinking? The bubble that they zip you in and have you run around, soccer fields and play,
That
you know.
sounds like it's. But I can also picture myself blowing out to sea inside one of those pretty easily.
Yeah, but eventually somebody
Right.
would see it.
Yeah, you could go quite a distance, but so it has to be uh, it's designed around the particular task, and I like the shape I have in mind. So that's
Okay,
one
so
idea.
so
Another,
here's another idea is this type of thing. Now, the problem that I see, and let's solve it. Oh, here's even better. Here's a better picture. This is your outfit.
all right. So he's put a picture of a person stuck inside of a giant sphere, but I guess their legs are sticking out the bottom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like their legs.
Well, for my
Yeah.
objection to that is this big expensive thing that's going to get ruined pretty quickly, and I would like to reduce it down to a small porthole that I can maintain properly. I don't need the 360-degree view.
Okay.
I'm a cyclops with a camera. And
Okay. So
yeah.
the other thing that I see that is a big problem is shooting through whatever translucent or transparent material that you are using for your bubble. So do you have a solution for that?
Well, there's different things to try, but basically something really sturdy. Probably polycarbonate would be a good choice. I use polycarbonate safety glasses, and they get bombarded with grinder grit all day long, and they hold up pretty
Right.
well. So
Right. I have a full
yeah.
shield.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to be that guy who completely misses it, but like, what about a Nikonos?
Well, again, it's not a big piece of film. Like it's
see.
just a little 35 millimeter. And those are a good solution. There's no reason not to bring one into that same situation. And actually, I do have cameras that I consider sacrificial. You put a good filter on it. It's a cheap lens that's well made, and you can go out and
Yeah.
they'll take quite a lot of abuse.
Sears branded K-mounts.
But I can't
they're
take,
$10.
I don't want to do that with my really nice Fuji lens on my, OG, right? So, although the OG could handle quite a lot of abuse, it's the lens I'm really worried about. And I suppose I could just make some kind of lens condoms.
Bubble. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen those like camera rain jackets that people have?
Yeah, so that's another design I've been working on. It's essentially a giant hood that you can just shoot with normal cameras and something that with a stiffened hood that will keep the rain off.
Now I think you're talking about something that's actually plausible.
Oh, that is another thing I want to do, and that's basically just sew a huge hood with a wire reinforcing that can go on a anorak, and it should be a really oversized anorak so that you can take the camera and hang it around your neck and pick it up and shoot, so that it's going to be a bulky thing, and it probably needs a superstructure. And so this is all about fabric and lightweight frames, which brings me to another idea that I want to pursue, which is extremely light. Yeah.
Before you change to another one, I want to ask a question about this. Is it crucial that you are in the same environment as the camera, or can you have a separate?
Now you're talking about diving
air
equipment.
between you and the camera.
You're talking about diving equipment, and there are wonderful containers for cameras that allow you to operate them in water. That would certainly work too. But the problem for me is that unless you're in water, they're big and heavy.
Oh, Nick, we've lost your audio.
Yeah, you probably have your thing unplugged. I heard plug clicking.
Yeah.
No, apparently not.
There we go. Now we can hear you.
Right.
Yep.
So basically, if you can wear it on your shoulders and it's balanced. So in other words, a giant anorak with a huge hood or a blimp balanced on your shoulders that's got weight in front and back, all of that takes that tippiness off. I don't want to hold a 20-pound thing up in front of me, which is what the dive equipment turns into if you're not in water.
Right. So here's another question about that same thing. Wind was an important factor. So I think it's got to be rigid in some way, right?
Well, that's where the blimp model. So that has a framework. It's a fabric, but it's got a framework. And maybe it needs ailerons too, we'll see.
Maybe it needs, like helium to stay aloft and a ballonnet to change the density of the gas.
Or little winglets with just enough lift to, balance it out. Whatever. It could be
the whole time while you're doing it.
Okay. I'm gonna try and pull us back to what is possible. Like,
Okay,
or I mean,
so
we don't have to make the most practicable things, right? But
yeah,
as much as I love the idea of like Nick locomoting down his beach on a strand beast with with ailerons for pointing his camera, like I think there is something here, right? I have often dreamed about a backpack shoulder strap that like has a slider that locks to the strap and then a clamp that holds an umbrella. Like
Yes.
just shooting in New York, I want two hands and an
yeah.
umbrella over my head. I thought about the umbrella hat, not quite big enough. I think
Okay.
I stand
Okay.
by
So
that. That's a reasonable invention.
actually, so my version of that is those wedding photographer hand grips that screw onto the tripod socket.
Hmm.
Yeah.
One of those with an umbrella clamp in the
Well, and
handle would work
they
really
make
well because it would follow the camera.
Hmm.
I was at our college graduation on Friday, and he had an umbrella, but it was a reflector umbrella sitting on one of those clamps.
Yeah,
Um, so
right. No,
all
it'd
you have to
be
do,
really straightforward if you just added onto something like a handle bracket or
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
flash
The
bracket or whatever.
what doesn't get included with that once again is driving range.
Hmm.
Right.
Sure.
And
And that was
that's where the blimp comes in. So I have been
yeah,
out on. I mean, when you start looking at 40-knot winds on a sandy beach,
yeah.
it defeats anything like a hood or an umbrella. You definitely need something that is getting more like an aircraft.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be complicated. Like I like the complication, but
More
that's
like an
unnecessary.
aircraft. It doesn't have to be complicated.
So
Well, it doesn't actually have to fly or anything.
here's another factor that I think that you have to include, and that is the idea that at the beach on windy days, often what's hitting you is not rain from the sky, but salt spray
And sand.
from and sand from well, salt spray particularly because then it doesn't dry clear, right?
Right.
So I'm kind of my brain comes back to the idea of something that screws onto the thread mounts and then covers. So what you have on the thread mount
So
is
like a poncho with a filter in it.
right, but that filter is not just okay. I don't know if you guys have ever watched F1 racing, but right behind the driver there's a camera, and in front of that camera is a piece of plastic, I assume, that rotates when it becomes too dirty.
Yep.
Okay, so it's just a big disc that rotates. I assume it's actually coming up from the bottom. But what that does is that then gives you once again every time you want to take a good picture, you let it get dirty and dirty and dirty and dirty. The other thing was back in the day of motocross, in the early days of motocross, they had goggles where you can just peel off a layer and drop it because you know
Mhm.
motocross, right?
Right.
And then you have brand new clear glasses again. Maybe that's what you need to do is to look at layering that.
Okay, so
Because
now I'm picturing a flying saucer with portholes all the way around the rim, and you could just keep rotating it a few degrees to bring a new window into play.
You
bring in
know,
the leeward side, right?
I don't know if
And
you guys
your valet can run along behind,
Yeah,
scrubbing the extra windows. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know if you guys watch AVE is a YouTube channel. He's a machinist and polymath of sorts. He did this one series where he was trying to shoot GoPro video of um, his CNC mill, and the GoPro, while waterproof, kept getting covered in cutting fluid and chaff, and so it would lose the image like a second. And so what this guy did was he milled a aluminum housing with like a filter inside on a bearing and propelled it pneumatically. So much like your driver cam with the
Uh-huh.
rotating big disc, this was a small disc that he just spun super fast with a compressor, so that the water would sheet off of it. And it worked okay. It was interesting. It was a huge
Centrifugal
setup.
hurler. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so
Now I am
we're just
going to.
showing this is the effect, and this is mud. But I think that, you could do that, and here's the concept where you're just peeling it away.
Right.
I think
Uh-huh.
that might be, and I
So
just showed a picture of a guy, in full motocross helmet with, completely caked in mud with goggles that are
and
shining.
with a still photography, you just peel and shoot, right? So.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's useful. Thank you for the tip.
Yeah.
I want to move on because I'm gonna have to start working before too long.
Yeah.
Another idea that I've had in the past that I'd like to develop further is, so I just did a 4-day backpack in the mountains with too many cameras, and so I'm thinking a lot about how to save weight. And
Yeah.
one of the ideas I've wanted to take a little more seriously is a really lightweight folding 8x10 camera that's essentially just bellows with a exoskeleton, so that you can get the weight down as much as possible. And maybe it's, you could be fancy and use carbon fiber or just plywood, whatever, lightweight materials.
Isn't that your carbon adventure?
Yeah, but
boards?
it's sort of. But I was picturing bigger 8x10 and really even like less rigid, like a much simpler, not much more than a bellows and a simple exoskeleton, so that, and it also goes down flat. It'll compress down to just a flat pancake. Um, I think this is something that could actually be made to function pretty well. It wouldn't work in the storm, right? But
Right.
we're probably talking about
Any wind.
long exposures in landscape anyway. So,
Yeah.
wind isn't really going to be part of the picture.
So was this an idea of a hand camera?
No, it's gonna sit on a support, but again, the idea is to get it as light as possible.
I think, okay, so you don't even need to take a support, a beanbag pillow.
Yeah, or
Because-
something along those. Right.
because
it doesn't
you're
have
gonna
to be a
be taking-
tripod. Yeah.
Then that makes your sleeping that much better, right?
Well, support is a separate issue, but
Yeah.
basically 8x10 cameras can easily get really out of hand, and the idea would be to get this as light as possible.
There we go. That's
right.
I mean, and this is when I use my X-Pan.
Oh, so that's
Pro, that's
so
my
that's
tripod.
Okay, so that's one notion, and it's not necessarily even just backpacking. It's just that it's something that's easy to transport. It takes up little space. It doesn't weigh too much. And let's see. All right.
Okay, so
We
here,
already
I'm gonna
did.
do a
No,
little
I
bit-
didn't. We didn't talk.
Oh.
Did we talk about this on camera? But the idea of using vertically traveling 120 film to get
Yes.
panoramas, was that recorded?
Yep.
That's on my list of things to do. I want to make that because I really like panoramic format, and I'm not happy with having to use a dark bag to unload the back that I'm using now.
What kind of lens do you want to use for that?
Well, it's going to have to cover the format, so it's going to need to be, either a medium format lens or a perspective correction lens, something with a big image circle.
Okay.
And
okay, so here's one of the other things is that's going to be a lot easier with a leaf shutter.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if are there perspective correction leaf shutter lenses? Anybody know?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
Then maybe that's my next project.
Yeah. I mean, there are.
I don't know. Okay, you probably didn't hear it at home, Nick. I'm not sure you saw it, but Ethan just gave me the snort of "you idiot."
No, I didn't.
No. Well, there is an easy solution, which is you just get a jumbo leaf shutter like an Ilex or something. So
Yeah.
you could mount a PC lens right on one of those giant shutters, and they don't go very fast, but they're fine for landscape.
Right.
But probably the simplest solution is to use a medium format lens that comes in a small shutter. I mean, that would be the obvious thing to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so there's that. And then the other thing I've always been wanting to develop, and I think it's time to start on it, is the cameras designed, or camera housings designed to use at the surface of water. So these are like little boats with, again, some sort of porthole, like it's similar to what divers use, but I would actually want something that floats on the surface, and you can tilt below water, above water, or that split where you're half and half. And again, sort of an oversized thing that allows me to use bigger cameras. And then the other version of this that I've wanted to do for a long time is basically a metal container that has a porthole that points straight up, so that it's for sitting on the bottom of the stream and shooting through the water. So the water becomes a filter essentially, and you're shooting up out of the water from underwater. And this could be very simple. If you're just going to use it in streams or shallow water by the shore, you can just have basically a handle with a hose with a cable release, on the handle. So you can angle and position it and then shoot, haul it out of the water, change your film or advance your film or whatever, put it back, do another shot.
Does that have to be film, or I'm thinking of
it could be anything.
Digital with the apps that allow you to see the live view from
on the phone, on your phone.
On the phone.
Yeah, that would be very practical. And you can also fire it from the phone so that it's very simple to use. Right. So you basically could make a little phone mount on the handle, and that would work great.
Yeah. So now you're talking housing.
And then another idea that I had is I have this old Konica it takes AA or AAA batteries or AA batteries. Yeah, it takes big fat batteries. Anyway, it's a motor advance, so you can shoot 36 shots without having to open it up and fiddle with the camera. And so you just need a way to push the button. That's all, and it'll keep shooting.
Mark OBrien had that. I think it wasn't Ricoh 500 GX. It was another one, but it was that surveillance camera where it did the click and then it wound and then it did the click and then it wound.
Yeah, this is it's the first camera made with a built-in motor drive, and it's all it has. Otherwise, it's just a normal manual camera, which is one reason I like it. It's even got a mechanical shutter, but it does go and move the film onto the next frame, and that would be good for that. So I want to shoot in the edge of water, like edge of water and air, edge of water and land. There's a lot of that around here. A lot of my favorite images are to do there. And once you get, it's a little sketchy already. I'm walking on slippery logs with breaking waves next to me, hastily shoving my camera under my coat. So I'm already kind of pushing the limits of what I can do with a nice piece of equipment.
Ethan, while Nick's talking, do you want to say it together?
What?
Nikonos. Come on, say it. Yeah, exactly. No, I like that idea. I had a Minolta dual weather, which I took apart and took the lens out.
I had one of those and sold it because I hated it.
In fact, I think this might be that lens. I have a Lenspunk lens sitting on a Fuji XE2 that allows perspective control because it's like a lens baby. But I'm interested in that as well. I think that there's something really nice about that water air interface.
Yep.
One of the great pictures that I think we all love seeing is when it's half in the water, half out of the water, seeing above and below.
Yeah. And you kind of want to lean towards wide lenses with a lot of depth of field, because you get into focus issues when you're shooting through two totally different refractory indexes.
Right, exactly.
But that's also, it makes sense anyway, because things tend to look better when you're right on top of them in that situation anyway. So
exactly. Exactly. So okay. So what else can we shoot a hole through? And
those are three that I'm interested in right now. And of course, there's a long list of these, but I think I'm going to stop right now because I have to go out pretty soon and get my helper in the shop started for the day. But that won't take long. If you guys want to keep going, that's fine.
Okay. So, I think that there's there's plenty that Ethan and I can talk about, don't you think?
Probably.
Okay.
We've been going
So
for almost an hour.
yeah, okay. So we'll be back in a couple minutes here.
Okay. I'm going to mute me and you.
picture.
Okay, and we're coming back in 3, 2. Okay.
Woohoo! Oh, am I supposed to say something?
Yep.
Okay, so
Graham's
we were,
camera sales show. We
yeah,
could
I
be the
was just
QVC of
showing,
Graham's cameras.
yeah, I was showing the guys the cameras that I'm gonna put up on eBay and seeing if either of them were interested. Um, okay, so we talked about Nick's camera ideas. Ethan, is there something that you wanted to bring up? Something you wanted to show?
Um,
Um,
so I don't really have anything to show for myself, but I want to build a camera that takes 7-foot tall pictures. That is,
okay.
it's going to look more like a room in a building, but um, yeah, it's maybe the least interesting camera, but most interesting pictures, maybe, or probably the least interesting big pictures, or something
Tell
like
me
that.
the lens that you're gonna find that's gonna have that coverage.
Good question. There's a
Pinhole with a How about a pinhole with a 20 millimeter focal length or distance to film?
um too short to be heavily vignetted, but
It might be vignetted just a bit.
yeah, I mean it could be done with pinhole, but I don't think I could do enough strobes for that.
I have a I have a practical suggestion, which is you could have a stack of cameras and then stitch. So if you had, the size camera you already have, if you stacked them up,
Yeah, I think
4 of those.
Chuck Close did like some 20 by 24 photo collages, right? Collages,
Yeah.
Or
like that.
you can even have one big sheet of film or paper behind all those cameras too, and just and expose it simultaneously. So in other words, several lenses.
Yeah, fly eye.
Yeah,
Um,
instead of one huge one.
I mean, you can also do the Heather Oklaus mosaic um, metal
Yeah,
backing
I mean,
to it.
right, but that
Um,
again solves the paper problem. Doesn't necessarily solve the lens problem. I want to
yeah,
shoot people that size, which is tough, unless we
yeah,
embalm them like the bodies exhibit, and then we could take still life style. But I think
yeah.
there are lenses out there. They're quite expensive. I mean, that would be an undertaking that I can't just do for fun. Have to be like a job to uh, buy a lens and 200,000 watt
Yeah.
seconds strobes. But I think it is technically doable if you have the manpower and time and money to do it. I would like to do that. That's my
Okay,
pie in the sky
Did
right
so
you?
now.
Oh, wait, I
uh,
want to throw in. Do you ever play that game where you take a strip of paper, you draw a head, fold it over, and the next person draws the shoulders,
Hmm.
fold it over?
Yeah, of
You
course.
could basically, if you did a 4 lens stack, version, you could essentially do the same thing. So you could,
Uh
put
huh.
one person's head on somebody else's torso,
Ooh.
etc.
Oh, the Monster Mash camera.
Yeah.
Or
or
what? Yeah.
or another way to do it is say 3 lenses. You place them on top of one another as close as you can get them, and just tilt the top and the bottom. Um, Now, if you could do a shift tilt, so maybe you're tilting your plane
Yeah. Okay. All of
of
these are
the
like,
film.
interesting theoretical solutions, but I don't want to do that. I just want to buy a $20,000 lens, mount it to the wall, take one beautiful giant photo, right? Like, okay, yeah, I think I have some other semi lensless ideas for how to do something like this that would be extremely impressive, but I'm not going to spill the beans on that because our listeners are both of them are faster than I am to producing something
It's
like
always
this.
good when you have the audience outnumbered.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, okay. Um, excuse me. There's that. Uh, we also so are there any other ideas that are
They're more
coming along.
practical. I mean, so this is a hard show to do because at the beginning of the show, Graham and I and Nick actually showed off some things. Particularly, Graham and I showed off some things that we are working on and not ready to talk
Yeah.
about yet. But that is what is most exciting. So, yes, I'm working on
Uh-huh.
something. It will be released later. I mean, and
Yeah.
it's this reminds me of the time I tried to give an Afghan box camera demo to like 100 people and realized I had my arm in a box. They couldn't see anything that I'm talking about. Like, what type of demo is
Right.
this? Um, but yeah, I mean, there are other formats out there that I'm interested. We could leave it at
Yeah.
this: is like the Lomograph lockback. I think is amazing and wonderful. I've said that before on plenty of places, and I just don't think that there are very many. I was using a camera like this. Graham is holding up a beautiful wooden pinhole camera with a Lomograph lock back stuck to it. I had my friends Joe and Becky here yesterday, and we shot a lot of Lomograph lock Instax pictures on um, the 4x5 Cojones
Hmm.
pinhole cameras. Looks a lot like your camera. And some of them were really, really amazing. But listen, I will say, like, one, the Instax wide format has never appealed to me because there's nothing that I wanted to use it in, right? Like, I could have taken a Instax wide camera and ripped the front off and glued it on, or 3D printed a mount for
Hmm.
Mamiya press lenses or large format lenses, etc. But I think, like, those become one-offs. I'm always interested in something that I can make a bunch of. Like, part
Hmm.
of my satisfaction is, one, making some money and selling things, but like, two, seeing what other people do. I'm not the best photographer, but if I make a lot of them, sometimes my cameras are in the commission of a beautiful artwork. um, and and so in the Lomograph lock back in particular, I think just really inexpensive. It's the most requested item that I get on my form submissions
Hmm.
through my website. Can you make an Instax wide back to fit RB67, RZ67 4x5 camera? Like, once a month, I get one of those. And I always say, no, because I'm sure Lomography went quarter to $500,000 in tool building to make this damn thing that sells for
Yeah.
$140, and I just can't do that. I'm not that big for marketing purposes, production, no purposes big enough. So the other way to do it is just like 3D print or custom machine each one. And I was like, for what I'd have to sell one for, it wouldn't be worth.
Hmm.
And so I have never undertaken that, and I'm glad I didn't, because Lomography came out with a perfect version that cost $149 and would cost me at least 10 times that just to make the thing, and
Right.
and so I think it just opens up the possibility of using Instax Wide on all sorts of cameras. Uh, obviously the 4x5 graph lock
Hmm.
backs or 4x5s, with standard flanges. But I could see you mailing any one of those cameras to Nick and him, tearing it apart as disrespectfully as possible and with the most reverence and respect, gluing it back together onto something that would fit draft lock. Anyway, I'm really excited about that. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that.
I've
It it
oh, go
it
ahead.
does work. It does work really well. It's basically designed for pressed cameras that have a combination spring back ground glass with uh, a graph lock attachment. There are a lot of other cameras that it's not as well suited to, but you could modify
Hmm.
some parts to make it work.
It works perfectly on my Chamonix.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm nothing but pleased with doing that. Um, I really need to work with the film more. Uh, the This has a crazy sharp reciprocity failure curve. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if you shoot it at a minute, or let me say anything over a minute, you're 5 stops over. So it's 100 speed film. Um, and that is, am I right here? 800 to 400, 200, 100. That's 4 stops. It's 50 ISO film. Um, Maybe that's my problem. I shot it at 100. It is it is a problem with pinhole, and I'd love to hear from people who have successfully worked with this stuff for pinhole. I've shot all of I don't know, 12 maybe.
I
Yeah,
I have
12 exposures.
there's a
So
yeah there's a
I'm still working.
there's another issue with them with the press cameras, which is that because of that you're adding all that distance to the film plane, you can't use very wide lenses with it, and
Yeah.
you know that, and like the crown graphic is probably the tightest there is of the standard press cameras in terms of having a shallow flange back distance. And when you add that another 20 millimeters or whatever, it
Mhm.
just it limits you to a fairly long lens, which and so what's needed there is a much shorter, a much shallower camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that I think that there's something to this still, but I'm not finally convinced yet of it.
Hey, do you want to
Um,
see some Instax?
yeah,
See,
let's see
Instax we shot
some.
yesterday with a pinhole,
Yeah,
looking for the right folder.
were you compensating for the reciprocity on that, or were you shooting it
No,
at 800?
I generally shoot Instax at 500. That's what I've
Okay,
found works best for me. But I haven't found that much reciprocity problems with it. But like, we were shooting at a second to uh, oh, 6 seconds at most. So it was,
okay.
you know, um,
Yeah, make yourself bigger and
yeah. Hang on a sec. I'm just
yeah.
trying to stick my hand in here and find the right Polaroids. I didn't
Yeah,
set
that worked.
I
I
didn't
like.
set this up in the
Yeah.
video.
Okay.
So here's one, but it's just like the hood of my Jeep that Becky took
Yeah.
test. But that came out of a pinhole, and it's really sharp. It has really nice tones. Like, it's not as
Yeah.
sharp as a lens, right? Which means that like the information from one pixel gets scattered to the next, for a better lack of a better way of explaining it,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so you get this sort of like very soft contrast, which is actually super nice on Instax, which tends to be very contrasty. I would say like
Uh-huh.
this picture that Becky took has some of the best tones of anything. Like, I mean, I dig the look of regular Instax through a Mamiya Press lens, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's it's nice and sharp, but it's also very contrasty, micro contrasty.
Yeah.
But these pinhole images, I let me see if I can find another one.
Well, I noticed that you're using the black and white or monochrome film.
Yeah,
I'm still using. I have one pack of that, but I'm using the color, and you know, everything that's black is should be black is blue. You
yeah,
know.
I was having a lot of issue with the color as
Yeah.
well. I think there's a color shift as time goes on, right? Like a multi-second exposure, but
Oh,
we could
okay.
have gelled it. I We
Yeah.
didn't have as nice results, but like we did shoot some perfect
Uh,
pinhole portraits at this size. No, that's just off a little box
that's a hell of a spleef you guys
camera. Is
were
Joe
smoking
smoking
there.
a cigar?
Oh, okay. Oh, oh, it's really a cigar.
Yeah,
It's not a blunt, it's a blunt.
yeah,
Those pinhole shots look better than some of my lens shots with that film, so
yeah.
that's
Mine
interesting.
too. Right, they
Yeah.
were very nice, and that that was maybe a 2 or 3 second exposure. Like, people can hold still at least sharp enough to make a 6 by 10 centimeter image.
So
Uh-huh.
2 or 3 seconds. So what's the focal length of your pinhole?
We were
box?
shooting on, I believe, a 90 millimeter 4x5, but then add maybe 24 millimeters to that,
Mm-hmm.
because of the depth of the
Because
lomograph lock
right.
back.
Okay,
No,
so
I never
that's
even
so
thought about
114.
that.
Actually, that's a perfect 9x6. That's the perfect normal for 9x6, or not 9x6, 6x9. Yeah, 6x9. That's a really nice focal length. So
I'm measuring with
what's
a
the
ruler and not a
what's your pinhole?
caliper.
Do you know?
Wait,
Is
You
is
remember what you?
both stop. You both asked me a question at the same exact
okay?
time, and I did
Is
not
it
hear either of you.
is it
Pinhole
20
size.
millimeters? Is that the
Um,
offset exactly?
I don't. I have it written down, but
Okay.
yeah, it's about
It's close. It's
20
like
to 25.
20.5 or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I could actually measure it if you want, but
Yeah. Go ahead, Nick.
okay. I just
I'm
wanted to know.
wondering.
I was trying to finish the getting what he did there. What was the? Do you remember the pinhole diameter?
Um, it worked out to be about f256, maybe to 240.
But we don't remember the physical diameter of the pinhole.
No, I mean we could back calculate, but I think I drill them all. There's a bunch of different size holes because I sell a 45 and a 90 and a 135 and a 210 for 8x10, so they all get a different hole. But anyway,
Okay.
yeah.
I was just curious because I could try and reproduce it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I will. But after the show, I will. Well, we can do this right now. Actually, I can calculate on paper, right?
I'm on my 4x5. It's 120 millimeter focal length, which would make it 140. The pin is 0.45 millimeter, and that gives me a 267 plus because it's a little bit longer than normal. So I'm gonna go.
And what'd you say your focal 140, something like that?
Yeah, it would be 140. I'm gonna go to Mr. Pinhole and see what he has to say.
Well, they did look really good in it. I'd be curious to try. It's super easy to add a pinhole to, the press camera too. So
Yeah, I just I have a set of PCB drill bits from, I think it's 0.0 or 0.2 millimeters all the way up to like 0.8 millimeters or 1 millimeter, and I just drill little bits of soda cans.
Yeah.
So did you come up with what you used for this particular?
I was probably something like a 0.4 millimeter.
Okay.
pinhole.
Yeah, I think I have one of those ready made. Yeah, and I've got what is it called? Depressed center board, or lens board. What are they called? Recessed lens board. Center boards go on boats, right? All right.
Well, you've got good stability in highway, right?
Yes. So it would be worth a try because I'm still kind of, and also I'm interested to hear you're shooting it at 500. That actually makes sense. I've been using it at the box speed of 800, and I feel like I'm tending to underexpose. So
Yeah,
that actually makes a lot of sense.
I mean, the other way that I am using Instax is, I think it is a nice way to use it, is that I'll shoot a picture and then just like wait and hang. I mean, obviously you can't shoot everything like this, but for when I'm shooting Polaroids, I like to shoot a picture, wait, see how it develops, and then adjust from there. And then like once I get one picture dialed in, then I'll blow the rest of the pack, right? And I kind of know for the lighting what looks good, right? And so like I start with a Sekonic whenever I take my first picture and at ISO 500, but like who knows, it seems to have like some reciprocity shift. It seems to certainly have some color shifts, color version, maybe different UV sensitivity. I don't know, but like you don't really need to know all of that if you can see one proof.
Right.
it's time for Lily's cameo. Oh yeah, there we go. Lily has the inflatable cone of shame because she was spayed a week ago. So just have to do that.
Well, it's better than the Scarlet A anyway.
Yes, absolutely. Or the Scarlet S. I'm spayed, which means I can go wild and do whatever I want and there's no consequences. Okay, so
What are
anything
we talking
else?
about?
Guys, do you have anything else to talk about? Nah? Okay. So any shout outs, anything you guys wanna say to anybody anywhere? Um,
Hey, thanks to everybody, the Negative Positives podcast a little while ago.
okay.
Fun.
Which reminds me, since I've been shooting the Sears branded K-mount lenses, if Pentax and the K1000 are,
The working
the
man's camera.
camera of the working man,
Oh.
is the are the K-mount Sears branded cameras the um
Also,
camera of
working
the
man's camera.
ne'er-do-well, never employed slug of a person? That's my theory. Okay.
Okay.
Shout out to Gutterman.
Yeah, and
Okay.
also there have been a series of posts on the Homemade Camera Podcast Facebook group of various people's solutions to making a a view camera for digital cameras, and some of them are really elegant and inexpensive. Because the ready-made versions made by Horstman and Cambo are thousands and thousands of dollars, but people have taken bag bellows and a few bits of hardware and made some really nice versions of these. And they're something that I'm really interested in. So I was happy to see them posted recently.
Okay. All right. I think we say thanks to Robbie. Thanks, Robbie Cribbs, for providing us with the music that we end every show with. He composed it for us and allows us to use it. So thanks, Robbie.